Hello all, welcome to shop. Today I'm going to do kind of an unboxing review explanation on these NOS government surplus Scherr-Tumico micrometers. And this is something I'm really excited about because they were the right price for the right tools. Now, I'm always big on buy the tool, don't buy the brand. And you'll see I do have a hodgepodge. I got a little bit of everything. But these are relatively interesting. These are US made, made in St. James, Minnesota. And I'd say quality-wise, in their heyday, they were considered comparable to Starrett, Brown and Sharp, based on what I've read and talking to some older gentlemen. But I'm not an expert on this. They were brand new in the box, and I really only needed the 3 to 4, not the 5 to 6 or the 4 to 5 or the 5 to 6. I just needed the 3 to 4, but the whole kit was there, and I was looking at buying a new Mitutoyo 3 to 4 mic because these add up. So a Mitutoyo, which is kind of the budget-friendly micrometer, that's $175 per. Now, you do get some more creature comforts. Like the Mitutoyos are really easy to calibrate. These aren't. And they come with some carbide faces. But for me, carbide faces aren't a big deal. My most used size is this 0 to 1. And I mean, look at it. It's really cute. It's got good chrome. It's very well machined. They feel fantastic, fantastically smooth. But they don't really compare to, say, Brown and Sharp. And this is Brown and Sharp number 13. It's hard to read through the camera lens. And this feels like a bank vault. This is rock solid. And I really like my Brown and Sharp tools. I've never had any issue with them. Starrett is 231. This is my most used mic because it's just the smoothest. Got well worn. I was gifted this. Also an excellent tool. But, buy the tool, not the brand. Like, feeling nice, these are just as accurate. And these are new, so I'm the only one who's monkeyed with them. You can trust the faces a lot more. Actually, here's kind of an obscure one. You might not have heard of one. Here's JT Slocum. Now, these were another kind of New England regional company. This one's old. This is actually before anything was hard chromed. And this is like Japanning. So there's a lot of brands out there. Here's one of 3 Mitutoyo micrometers I own. And this is a point micrometer. So this is for getting in external features. Come on. See how it's got 60-degree points on it? This is for getting in some external features. I like the Mitutoyo lock the most out of all of them. And I find these are really easy to calibrate because you spin this. On the Scherr-Tumicos I'll show you, but you actually move this part on the spindle, and I'm not a huge fan. But these points, while they're carbide, are very delicate. So I do not like to leave these bare to the world. So I always thread this in a protective tube. Even just like that to keep it safe. Here's my second Brown and Sharp micrometer. This is my favorite depth mic. I prefer it over my Mitutoyo, even though it's kind of got some stains on it. It's still accurate. It repeats to within 1,000th. Face is good. But I like how slim the depth rods are. To me, that's a nice feature. On the Mitutoyos, I'll grab mine out of here. What you get with them is, excuse me, the rod's a lot fatter, so it can be harder to get into certain features. And, this is kind of funny because it's the slim, relatively short, stout base, slim, it's got a lock on it. And you'd think, like, oh, it's more modern, I'll like this, but I don't like the plastic. I've broken these. And it's just this, it's like bank vault. You got a really slim rod, you can get it anywhere you need. It's just frankly, it is an excellent tool. And you know, we've got, in the shop, I pretty much only buy Mitutoyo calipers. And one of the things I always do is don't store them with the jaws touching, and also figure out why they're 15th thou off. I think there's dirt in there, and yep, there's dirt on the jaws, so that's not a super big deal. You know, I do have a set of vernier calipers I use a lot while I'm grinding. And these are old. I've had these for quite a while, but I smeared dichem in here because it was hard to read the lines. And that brought them back to being usable. These have carbide faces, which is a nice creature comfort. But back to the star of the show, which is the Scherr-Tumico mics. So you see here, this is your adjustment. So you've got to hold this in one hand or put it in a padded vise and twist this guy, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think that it feels like it should take 3 hands even if it's clamped down. It doesn't, but it's a little bit of extra agitation for me. And it's nice. I mean, this has got all the rods. You know, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, and 5 inch. You know, you got your little wrench. So this is a pretty good self-contained set. I stayed in touch. He was a Navy vet and spent some time in Korea, and he said when he was in the Navy they used I think Scherr micrometers or Tumico micrometers, but they were the predecessors. Scherr and Tumico merged. So Tumico was a tubular micrometer company. I forget what Scherr did before that on their own, but this company is actually really well known for optical comparators, which I don't own because they're expensive and they're very high maintenance. But it's really interesting to see how measuring tools really haven't changed that much. These are 80s. This style was finalized in about 1910. You know, this is 50s. I don't know the dates on either of these, but I would guess between the 40s and the 60s. I think really by the 60s, it was much more common to see ratchet stops on the higher end mics. And the lock on this is a little bit fussy, but it's not the end of the world. I don't use it much. Don't tell anybody. And it's, I mean, this really is almost completely, bumped my tripod. This is almost completely unchanged from the much older Brown and Sharp. And I also kind of don't bother buying depth mics like these that are graduated in tenths because the rods deflect. So you can actually be measuring a hole is like 5 or 6 thousandths long once you get out to the 6-inch rods, because the 6-inch rods are actually 7 inches long. I will show you how long they get. And you can deflect this pretty easily. I think this is actually only for a 4-inch. I forget, I bought the 0 to 4. Because I don't ever measure holes that deep. You know, I don't need to go 6-inch depth holes because that's irrelevant to my work. I'm primarily a gunsmith. And, you know, a 0 to 1 depth mic is perfect for chambering barrels. You know, most of these are luxury items. They make jobs faster, they make jobs easier. And it's nice. So, like, I've got 3 1-inch micrometers now. I can have them preset in a box very close to whatever size part I'm measuring, and I already do that. You know, I leave the Brown and Sharp out closer to 1 inch, and I use this for smaller parts under 1/2 inch. Because, you know, little time savers like that, it's a luxury. So there's a lot of little just luxury items that come with, you know, having a shop, and these being so close in price to just the 1 micrometer I needed, it was impossible to pass up. especially because, you know, the guy who taught me machining, he was a Navy man, and, you know, these were Navy mics. So it's just, it was hard to pass up. You know, you do feel some connection to history when you buy, you know, classic tools, but if you're just trying to run a shop, just buy the tool. You know, buy it new unless something falls in your lap like this and you've got a way to check it. Like, I've got really good gauge blocks. I've got other mics to compare them against that are known good. And I think that's one of the things for hobbyists, stuff like this makes a lot more sense. For a production shop, buy new tools or buy very, very, very good used tools, because you know what? It's going to bite you if you try and cheap out. Like, this is, I paid almost new price for this. This is a Mitutoyo multi-anvil micrometer, excuse me. And this just, it is very solid, very well made. You know, the made in Japan Mitutoyo stuff is hard to beat. The made in Brazil stuff is pretty good. But, you know, this style Starrett, I think, is my favorite micrometer of all time. It's just Art Deco. I love the engraving on it. I love how it feels. And if this had carbide faces, I'd be a happy camper. But it's nice. The Starretts are a little bit heavier than the Tumicos. So when you take your measurements by hand, like I tend to do, these take longer to warm up and introduce error. So that buffering is nice, but if you're doing super precise measurements and you're trying to measure tenths, don't hold these in your hand. Put them in a stand. It doesn't need to be pretty. You know, this is a really ugly mag-backed micrometer stand, but you know, this just needs to be something to keep it out of your hand from getting warm, where introducing heat error into the parts, I think it's basically half a thou per inch per 30 degrees. So I'm 98 degrees. My shop is kept around 68, 70. So I can be half a thou off on a 1-inch part. And when you're getting into measuring with the 6-inch mic, and as you warm everything up, you can be off a lot, especially with aluminum. So bear that in mind when you're doing precision measurements. But it's also, does it matter? And that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself. Does it matter if I'm half a thou off? Because the geometric relationship between parts and their shape often matters more than their exact dimension. So how do I rephrase that? Basically, your squareness and your angles will often matter more than being off by 2 or 3 thousandths for a lot of parts. So it's understanding what you need to do and what the part does helps in understanding how precise you need to be. And I've experienced this, and I do it myself, is people often over tolerance, and they chase being dead on to half a thousandths. And that's a lot of times a waste of time, where for grinding, yeah, you half a thousandths is actually a lot of error in grinding, but off a milling machine, that's fantastic. So just try not to stress yourself out if you're getting started. Just have fun, make good parts, don't hurt yourself. Now, thanks for watching. I hope you like and subscribe, and really any feedback from guys who've lasted this long, or girls. You know, let me know what you're interested in seeing. What would you guys like to learn about? You know, what can I share in here that would excite you and what do you want to hear about? Like, seriously, guys, I'm trying to get better at making videos and basically public speaking and what people are interested in. And it's kind of tough. This is a really niche business. A lot of people don't know why shops like this and businesses like this exist. So it can be hard to get people interested and learning, but this is really fun to me. I love what I do. I love talking about it, and I complain all the time about how hard it is, but it's really rewarding. Like, I take scrap iron. I've got bolts. These are out of a Mack Camelback suspension, and I've made a lot of good tools out of these because these are 4340 and they're already hardened, so they're barely machinable, but I can turn 60-year-old junk into good tools. And it's really fun to be able to share that with people. So again, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe. Just let me know what you want to see. Like anything. If it's just an explanation of what the tools are or how to do something. So again, I'm really grateful to you guys. It's been a lot of fun on this channel, just sharing what I do. And I hope it continues to grow.